Nintendo is finally jumping into modern VR. Yeah.
Hot take.
Experience a new dimension of Nintendo Labo with VR.
Do we have to?
No.
But Nintendo successfully found a way to get us to talk about Labo again. Congratulations, Mr. Nintendo. You did it. These are going to be released on April 12th, and the price point is between $49.99 and $99.99. You have new Labo VR. New Labo VR. We had heard about VR coming to the Switch because people did some data mining. They found there was a VR program in there. We saw articles saying that VR was on its way, and actually heard links to other Nintendo IP, like more popular Nintendo IP. Now we see this Labo VR, and there doesn't seem to be a connection to Mario or Link that we know of yet.
What we've seen so far is a variety of mounts for the headset that exists in the initial kit. Now, let's talk about a couple of these things. The first thing you'll get if you just choose to buy the initial VR kit is it will come with the head mount, and then it will come with a gun that goes right outside of it like that. It just,
You ever wanted to be one of those shooty-faced shy guys? Well, now you can, because you can mount this long gun blaster nose to your face.
I can't figure this out. I don't understand why they did this. To bring people into the product, you would assume that the camera one, which looks far more like a positive experience, you think that would be the one they include. But what you get is the actual like VR kit thing, the actual mount piece.
Yes.
And then that mount piece slides into the face shotgun, and so you've got that. Then the next kit is going to have the camera and some other stuff, and then there's another kit after that.
Okay.
But if you get the $100 one, it comes with everything.
Comes with everything.
Yeah.
So yes, what Shane's saying is there's two separate kits. One has everything, and one is just the blaster and the VR goggles. And yeah,
Yes.
I do agree with you that is strange, because when you think of like of all there's 6 things that you can make, including the goggles themselves that are inserted into all these different devices. But when you think of the thing that is the most representative of what it actually is, like you see it and you're like, oh, I know that thing. It's the camera.
Yes.
And you'd imagine like, oh, it's Nintendo. They want to be friendly, family friendly. You'd go with something like the camera. But
Not the face gun.
Not the face gun.
Look, we just talked about the ones that made sense to us. There are other products that are included with this bundle that we honestly don't understand. So like we said, you get the VR kit, it slides into other things. So one of the other things it can slide into is an elephant face with a movable trunk. The other one is sticking your head up inside of a bird for some reason. And then another one is a fan pedal, which I think works in combination with the VR kit itself, so that you can hold the VR kit in front of your face and push a fan wheel thing. Look, folks, I just don't understand.
Yeah,
this.
the fact that we got a press release for this and we're still very confused, I guess, goes to show how the messaging is for these products. One thing that Nintendo and a lot of people have struggled with when it comes to something that is a solo experience, or like a head-mounted display, I don't even know if you can call this a head mount. You push it up against your head, it doesn't really mount on your head. But you can't show what's being displayed on the screen. So Nintendo just sent out, there was a picture on Twitter and a little message announcing that this was going to be a thing. All we got is what the mounted things look like. It looks like an elephant, it looks like a bird. Well, the bird thing's weird, but we don't know what the visuals look like. And this is really important. This is something that Shane and I have been talking about every time VR's popped up with the Switch, is that it is a 720p screen when it is unmounted, right? Or undocked, I should say. So I want to know what this looks like on the inside, right? But it's going to be hard for Nintendo to properly show this because it's 3D.
And see, that right there, that's my problem. There are a ton of problems I can identify as someone who's used VR a lot. So let's talk about these problems right off the top so that we can actually really explain what's going on here. So first off, poor resolution, just like Adam said. You're going to be dealing with a very low resolution screen that is not going to be a very great experience. Now, there's also no external room or head tracking on this thing. So what that means is when you're moving around in free space, the Switch doesn't actually know where it is or how it's oriented. It has like the ability to identify some of that
with accelerometer sort of tech. Yeah.
Exactly. But without the ability to actually track you, it will not know how it's placed. So while you're playing these games, there's likely going to be a button that will reset your tracking whenever you're playing. Hopefully Nintendo did that. I just have to assume that they did the research and they know how to do that. The VR set has no facial comfort pieces like rubber or foam. I don't know if you actually looked at the front there, but when you look in there, you see hard cardboard sticking out from the sides and kind of like just kind of flat pieces of plastic. I've used tons and tons of VR headsets, and the ones that don't have comfort pieces inside suck, and they're not fun to put up against your face. So this one looks to be much of the same.
Yeah, I feel like this was constructed with all that in mind. Nintendo was like, okay, we need a cheap way of incorporating Labo with the Switch and VR. We want to make this happen. So I think this is one of the reasons why they didn't include some sort of a facial strap or something. It's like, well, it's really hard to make cardboard and plastic, which is cost effective, which is good for them. It's hard to make that comfortable, right? So it's not going to be head mounted. We leave it up to the user to press it against their face, or maybe keep it slightly away from their face, maybe for comfort issues. Maybe expense is the only thing that they're considering with the Labo VR.
In my opinion, what I'm seeing right now, not having head straps on is probably done for a reason. We don't want children strapping this thing to their face and accidentally falling around.
Immediately being able to leave the VR experience, I think, is essential, and Nintendo was thinking about that for kids. Like, oh no, if things are getting too intense, you feel like you're going to get sick or something, the kid can they don't even have to unstrap something.
And let's be fair, this is a very common thing for Nintendo to do, because back with the Virtual Boy, that's something they did with that too. You could not strap the Virtual Boy to your head, which a lot of people wanted to do, and people just weren't able to. But there are other issues of that. Now, because you can't strap it to your face, we don't know how well this thing breathes. We don't know if you're going to be sweating a lot while using it or whatever it might be. And typically with VR headsets, they tend to get dirty, and you're usually able to take off things and clean them. But when it comes to cardboard will absorb moisture. So sweat's going to be an issue, cleaning solutions are going to be an issue, anything like that is going to be a problem. Now, I know a lot of people out there just thinking it's like Google Cardboard, and people really don't care about the cleanliness of that, but Google Cardboard actually doesn't cost that much. It's cardboard. It's very cheap.
So it's interesting that you compare Google Cardboard and Labo, because Google Cardboard, even though it was made out of cardboard, just like Labo is, they were giving it away at one point, right? It was just something that they were kind of testing the field with to see, how these experiences would be. With Labo now, you have to dish out a fair amount of money, and it's not to say that there isn't a lot of thought and production that goes into these items. Nintendo, of course, is supporting this with software, and there's a lot of thought that goes into making what the mounts look like. But at the end of the day, it is still cardboard, and Labo, I mean, okay, it's higher quality cardboard than you're used to, but this is a product that even in the sort of press releases and tweets that they're putting out there, they're saying share it, bring it, bring it to your family. Everyone can experience this together. Very much the messaging that the Switch has had for a long time is that, hey, no, there's Joy-Con. You pick it up and you can be playing together. They want this thing to be a together piece. But then you have the problems of this is cardboard. There are face oils, there's heat, sweat, moisture, discomfort, And yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff with the messaging. They want you to share this. The Switch has been a shareable console, but when you think of VR, it's a solo experience. As soon as you put this thing against your face, only you're experiencing this. It's so weird, right?
Now, weight issues are also another big problem that you got to consider. Now, usually with VR headsets, they have to offset the weight of the headset by doing a bunch of different things. The best headsets feel like they have a great center of gravity. Now, with this, because there's no strap, I can't tell you exactly how this is going to feel because we haven't played it ourselves. But keep in mind, you're holding a big, even if it's cardboard, weird cardboard thing out the front of your face. in a weird, strange position. So when you're holding on to it and looking around, it's going to be awkward. Typically with VR, many of the games that exist on other platforms don't require you to aim with your head. That's a very uncommon thing to happen. You only see that happen with, honestly, Google Cardboard does it a lot because they have a limited amount of resources in terms of interaction with the screen or the ability to actually register an input like a button press, but you don't see that happening with some of the better VR headsets. So to see them doing this is strange.
Yeah.
I think it's awkward from what I've seen to hold the gun one in front of your face. I think it's awkward for the elephant one. I think it's awkward for the bird. The bird headset makes no sense to me. What are they trying to convey with that? Okay, if you're going to be a bird in VR, you don't need to have your headset look like a freaking bird. That's such a strange idea. And look, all the other Labo sets we've seen up until this point, they have some sort of understanding to them, an idea or some kind of experience they're trying to convey. The VR headset kit, the basic kit with just the thing you put the switch into, that would have been enough to convey all of these things. The next one up that would have been something that people could have needed maybe is the camera one, because in real life, when you go to take a picture with the camera, you hold it up to your face, so it makes sense that way. Everything else they're showing here doesn't make sense. It's a strange, bizarre thing that almost makes you look like an idiot rather than actually conveys any good demonstration of game design or design principles at all.
Yeah, so you're talking a little bit about weight. I want to backpedal on that a little bit, in that the way that these are designed is to counteract the weight issues I feel that are going to happen with having a Switch placed in front of your face to use as a VR device. These things look like they're constructed so that the bulk of the weight is carried by the user, right? Like, it seems like they knew that was a problem. So every single thing, if you look at all these pictures, they're designed so that you have to hold the bulk of the weight in a specific way. I think they were designed, in that facet. Digging into the weirdness of the designs, what you're talking about with the bird and stuff, like, there's some strangeness here where, okay, you have a camera and we see in the imagery that there's some fish and stuff. Okay, you're taking pictures of fish under the ocean. That's fine. The gun, the face gun, you got a missile there. And then with the bird, you have other birds around you, it kind of makes sense. When you look at the elephant, it's a drawing app,
I guess,
that you're using with the trunk.
Yeah,
there seems to be no flow to the way that these things are designed. Like, you see the way that some of these are created, and you're like, okay, no, you're a bird, you're a cameraman, you're shooting rockets, you're drawn with a pencil with the the disconnect here on so many levels is just frustrating to me.
Right, like the other things we've seen from Nintendo make a weird sort of sense, or very they're very intuitive, or they are a very cool concept and design. But see, Nintendo has not kept up with the VR space, and what other people have done in VR have been cheaper, more inventive, and cooler than what Nintendo has done right now. This is a really bizarre thing to do. Now, there is a large vision problem here. There's actually something that exists beyond all of this that is a huge issue. This is now the introduction to many people for VR, and their first experience is going to be with a Switch, and likely their experience is going to be poor. Now, we haven't got the headset ourselves, so we haven't actually been able to test it, but we just know from history of using VR headsets, the immediate problems you're going to have. That low resolution, the idea of not being comfortable, the concept of the headset acting as the controller itself. Those are problems that have already been addressed for years ago by other manufacturers. Nintendo is going into this completely backwards.
Yeah, and that's not to even take into consideration the fact that we need a certain refresh rate as well, which is something that I believe this item may be struggling with. One thing that I like, a positive that I'm trying to take from all this, because this is really not rubbing me the right way. They are incorporating the sort of garage app with this, so yes, people can take this device and hopefully do some really cool stuff with it outside of the software and the the models that they've created with the cardboard as is. Like, I want to see cool things, experiences that people make on their own, because I feel like this is one instance where the casual user might have better ideas than Nintendo, because these things seem so strange to me. But like you said, we haven't gotten these things yet, so I want to see gameplay before I have my final judgment stamp. We haven't seen anything, no software at all. All we've seen are really poor representations of the experiences through the cardboard helmet, or not even helmet, shield, face shield.
If I had to guess why it was just revealed like this without any video footage, without a direct or anything like that, I believe that Nintendo has not been happy with the performance of Labo. This was already so far into development that they decided to do it. Maybe there was a lot of push from investors to have a VR headset of some sort. I mean, it's an obvious choice to make when you have a portable system that's as powerful as the Switch. All these things together convey just a general idea of pushing this forward. What I have seen, though, does not inspire confidence. This does not look like a smart evolution of ideas or concepts to get here. It really feels like, look, we're just going to throw this out, see if it lands. If it lands, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think that's what they're looking at here. They're looking at just a random roll of the dice.
I hope it does work. I hope it does land and that kids enjoy it. I know a lot of people are going to have this comment, and I'm in that same headspace as you. This isn't for the 34-year-old person or even the 16-year-old teenager necessarily. I do think that this is skewed more towards a younger age group. The problem, though, is that the age group that they've skewed this for is quite minute. Because, I don't see even 13-year-olds necessarily getting a kick out of this, because there's other experiences and things that they could dive into. But it's ages 6 and up can build it. Ages 7 and up, they suggest for actually experiencing this thing. So if 13-year-olds might not be so interested in this, and you can only play it, or you should only play it from 7 and up, that's only a few years. So the space, the crowd that's going to love this item, really be drawn to it, may be quite minute. I don't know how much this is going to sell.
Now, I think for kids, this makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of kids out there that have never experienced VR before, so this is their first introduction into it, so they're not going to have the knowledge or experience that other people have had in VR, so for them, the resolution might just be fine, and that's great. And I think a lot of people out there are going to be able to look past the resolution if they can find a good experience there. I just think there's a lot of things technically that are going to work against that. But remember, they do have to build this, so this becomes one of the more complex VR headsets that's ever been released, because typically you don't have to build a VR headset. When you got Google Cardboard, it was properly manufactured mostly already. I mean, like, you did have to build it, but it wasn't like this. To build the VR kit itself, that's one thing. Every other device they have looks a lot more complex, especially the face gun. That looks like it's going to take you some time to build. Now, that's a part of the enjoyment of this. Actually, building these things is fun. But remember, there's going to be people out there that don't have fun doing this. And I know plenty of gamers out there that got Labo that are a little bit older and even a little bit younger that didn't have fun building these devices because they just didn't enjoy it. And the long-term wear and tear on these devices was not so long-term, because they ended up rubbing and getting ruined pretty quickly, because again, it is just cardboard. Adam and I have thought about a few solutions that Nintendo could possibly use to enhance this thing and make it more applicable to a larger group of gamers out there. So let's talk about some of those solutions we have.
Okay.
So both Adam and I sat down and talked about a couple of ideas that we could see that could actually improve this hardware or make it appeal to a wider audience. Now look, I like the idea of Nintendo getting into the VR space. I think we both do. It's just fun and interesting. But there are things they could be doing here that maybe they have already been planning but they haven't announced yet that could really make this thing sing, like get a lot of people into it. Now the first thing is obviously getting a bunch of already existing Nintendo Switch games working with this, whether it be the racing games that exist, Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Brothers. I know it'd be a little bit weird to play those holding it to your face, but something like that could work to make this experience kind of transcend just the Labo environment.
And from what we've heard so far, there have been rumors about this VR coming out for a while. The rumors have been that they are looking into having cross compatibility or compatibility with their other IP, their bigger things. The only way I see this being used as a display with some of those other games and still being able to play them and have fun is to kind of sort of make something that either it straps to your head, which I don't know that they're going to do, or like remake a Virtual Boy style stand for this thing. So again, like Nintendo could double dip into that, but I don't know. Like you don't want something to look like a failure from your past, right? Like, oh hey, just play it this way. Like, wait a minute, you tried to make us play it that way before, and no one played it, no one liked it.
Now, I think a stand could work to make it like a Virtual Boy, right? I think that there's a good case scenario for that, but I think that having Virtual Boy games on here is a good idea. Now, I know a lot of people out there are not big fans of the Virtual Boy, but you are talking to two folks here that actually like a couple of the games on the Virtual Boy.
I'm 2 games away from a complete set.
Yeah, it's not a big set, but okay. It is a really neat system. It had a bunch of problems with it, but there are games on there that are legitimately good games, and they're lost because Nintendo hasn't gone back to them. Here is the perfect time to bring them back, and having them included in this bundle would be a great way for people to play those games and see how fun they were. Now, we're not saying revolutionize the games completely. If they want to go back and add color and stuff like that, that would be cool, but just giving gamers the ability to play those games in a fun way like this would make it worth it for a bunch of people out there that would go and pick this up just to try that. Even older gamers would do that.
Well, Shane, there was color, the only color that was necessary, which was a lot of red.
But that's not the only time that Nintendo worked with 3D.
Oh my gosh.
The Famicom 3D was like a goggles, essentially, that you would put on your head and it would flash this weird way in front of your TV. It really doesn't matter how it works. All you need to know is that there were games that were actually designed for the Famicom, the original NES, essentially, in 3D. We never got any of that stuff in North America. So to have those games represented on here would be fantastic, not only because these are classic games that people want to play, but because the lower resolution would be played at an advantage here. These games naturally were at a low resolution, so to have them in 3D would be really cool because they would work here. Remember, one of the key aspects about our issue with this is that the console has a low resolution screen. Now, if you could make games that make use of that low resolution, suddenly it's not that much of a problem anymore. It will look old, but it will still be playable. And for Nintendo, it's never been about the really hardcore, expensive technology. It's been about the gameplay experiences. And if they can deliver in that front, I'm thinking that could be a very big incentive for people to pick this up.
Now, another thing that you had mentioned when we were talking about the possible use cases for the Labo VR was that there's another console, a handheld console, that has 3D integration. And it would be neat if we did get some of those 3DS titles. We have a huge library of games that we could be, playing once again in 3D, and it's not very taxing on the hardware as well. The 3DS screen, especially in 3D mode, got a lot of jankiness there, and I'm sure the 720p screen VR experience wouldn't tarnish that too much.
And the resolutions are low enough that it would make sense. Again, it's a lossless type of environment here. You're not getting a resolution that's that low. You're getting resolutions for these games that are basically what are needed to run those games originally. So I think this would be a smart move for them to do it, because look, just the VR set by itself is a little wild, it's a little weird, and maybe there might be some enjoyment there, but if you really want to appeal to a larger market, just throw in those games. It would cost you virtually nothing to do it, and Nintendo would be just raking in the money. I would be buying this. I'd buy several just for the idea that I could play some of those games again.
You know what I love about this is that we're having a discussion about the different things that they should be bringing to the Switch's VR with Labo, and all of them are kind of failed projects. So we're talking about the Virtual Boy, the Famicom 3D, both did terrible. The 3DS, which is doing extremely well despite the 3D functionality, which many people take that slider and dip it all the way down. We're just hoping, like, hey, Nintendo, just throw everything at this, and then maybe, like, together as a team, all of these, like, tiny little, like, blips of cool technology can maybe become an awesome package, right? The first time I looked at this, the thing that popped into my head was, I've seen products that look like this. If this didn't have the Nintendo Labo branding on it, do you think this would just be another product that's lost on a shelf in one of those, like, those educational toy store places.
Yeah, I think it would have been lost. Unfortunately, it looks like something that Nintendo didn't make. That's the weird part about this. It looks like something you would have seen in one of those just regular toy shops. But folks, what do you think? That's what's most important. Does this VR headset look interesting to you? Are you going to be buying one, or do you think this is too childish? Let us know what you think, because honestly, we're still pretty much on the fence.